cooperated today. We went live in like 10 seconds after I clicked the button. That's amazing.
Nice.
Welcome to Talking Heads, everyone. Episode 333, your once-weekly live show for the latest in beer and tech news. I'm Jeff, and he's also Jeff.
Two Jeffs.
I'm Spartacus. Welcome to the show, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining on this Wednesday night, or in podcast home, or over on Spotify, or wherever your favorite podcasts are found. If you've never seen the show before, we talk beer, we talk tech, we talk games, pop culture, entertainment, sometimes some Star Trek if it wasn't obvious from the background. All super chats are read on the air. Yeah, sometimes some Bluey, sometimes cars, sometimes wherever the conversation leads. All super chats are read on the air, so long as they will not permanently demonetize the channel. We do drink alcohol in the show, and if you're drinking along with us, alcoholic or not, let us know in the chat, and we'll give some early show shoutouts as we go along. Last but not least, if you'd like to take part in the super secret chat and the even more super secret after party, think about joining the Patreon. Link is down in the video description and gets you exclusive access to the Discord server, where you can chat with myself, John, Rhett, Steve, most of the other hosts from Talking Heads. Jeff, I'll make sure to get you an invite, because you should be on the Discord too.
I'm on the, well, I was on the Discord. I don't know, every year or so I do a great pruning, and I delete every Discord that I haven't, like, messaged in the past month.
Gotcha.
I've been on that.
Yeah, we'll get you back on. So, anyway, Jeff, welcome to the show. That's really weird to say.
Yeah, well, thank you, Jeff. there was somebody on Twitter who did the meme like, oh, I'm something of a Jeff myself. There are some of us out there. There's at least 12 of us in the world.
Right. My favorite Jeff meme, I don't know if you've ever seen this one, is the nuclear warhead stockhold of the world. Have you seen this?
No.
Okay, let me arms Jeff images. Let me pull it up here. There we go. You can pull this up all over the place, but oh, of course I didn't put fire.
It's a black hole.
Yep. Firefox. No, not the Discord. That's not
yeah. Now it's not super secret anymore.
Yeah. Oh well. I just doxed everyone. Who cares? There we go. Who is
yes,
Jeff, and why does he have a nuclear arsenal? So you've got Russia and the United States, obviously tied here at the top, and all the way down here at the bottom, with less than 10, is North Korea, and then Jeff.
I think I saw that one on the Jeff subreddit. That one has a good one every now and then. It's mostly noise, but there's a good one every now and then.
Yeah. Don't mess with Jeff, is what that comes down to. You don't know which one of us is actually holding the keys.
Yeah. Especially when Red Shirt comes out.
Right. Now, the one thing I didn't ask you before the show is, what did you want your title up above you to say? I just went ahead and put Jeff Geerling, but I did prep a couple just in case. So I've got Jeff Geerling
I'm wearing
there.
The normal shirt right now, so I am Jeff.
Right. Now I ended up wearing the red shirt, but I did prep red shirt Jeff just in case. Also, just for you.
I don't know about that one. That one's that's a little off.
I feel like that one's canon. And then we've also got Geerling Guy, if you wanted to go with your
in your alternate timeline on your channel. That's right. But
okay. Anyway, thank you so much for joining tonight. A lot of fun to get you on the show. Finally, I feel like this has been many years in the making.
Yeah.
Anyway, we start out every show by cracking open a beverage of choice. So what does the other Jeff drink?
Well, I have isopropyl alcohol today, but I'm not going to drink that. No, it's funny. So I'm at the studio, and I don't have alcoholic beverages here typically, because you don't normally drink during the workday. But so I ran over to the store, and I found out there's a cider company in St. Louis, Brick River, that they just started up pretty recently, and I've never been there. I didn't know that we had a cider company in St. Louis. So now this will be the first time I try it out. I love cider. Beer never did it for me. So yeah,
and that's fair enough. I told you on the Discord earlier that we don't discriminate against any beverages here at all. I mean, I'll make fun of you if you show up with a Coke Zero, but you know, beer, wine, cider, non-alcoholic, soda, whatever you want to drink. Totally.
It does have a little smell to it. It has elderflower. I don't know what that is. I know that there's like, you know,
yeah,
I've never had an elderflower before, but
yeah, kind of similar to lavender. A little bit of a lavender.
It does have a little bit of that flowery smell.
Yeah. Anyway, I just discovered a brand new brewery that's fairly local to me down in Eugene, Oregon. At first, I thought it was an Australian brewer that was being imported because it's Drop Bear Brewery. So this is but turns out it's literally like 80 miles from me. But this is the Pharaoh Doctor Australian Pale Ale, 5.9%. I had one of their beers yesterday, and I'm actually going to have a second one of theirs, the same one I had yesterday, later in the show for the second half. But very impressed so far. But there we go.
Another thing I don't have here at the office. I'm just going to drink it straight from the can.
That's totally fine as well. You know what? I need to ship you like a little merch pack, just something to keep in your office.
If you send me a couple of things, I'll put them around here.
Yeah,
the nice thing is, like, since I'm in this space, I do videos in different areas now, and whatever's sitting there is going to be in the shot. So if you give me a couple little things I can stash around, and next time I do this, I'll actually have a nice glass for it.
Yeah,
It'll probably be coated in dust, but
I'll send you in a case of emergency, you know, break glass and take glassware out. Yeah. There we go. A couple people signing on in chat. Jason's drinking a Deschutes Symphonic Chronic Double Dank IPA, 9%. I've had that one before. Excellent brewery out in Bend, Oregon. Andrew has a Cherry Pie American Style Sour Ale. Shades Brewing in Salt Lake City. Not a lot of breweries in Salt Lake City. But they do have a couple good ones over there. Coffee and Cynicism is drinking a Hop and Frog Repeat 3X American Imperial Brown, 15.6%. Oh my god.
That's pretty close to this.
Right. Wow. Hybrid Robotics. There's a local burger place here that has a nice 6.8% cider type ale. Let's see if there's anyone else. I don't see too many others. Okay.
One problem I'm seeing in chat is there's a lot of times when they address Jeff, and then I don't know which Jeff they're talking about.
Right.
Because not everybody knows the lore on your channel of this other Jeff thing.
Right. So this has been a debate for years between Geerling and I about, well, I'm Jeff, and I sign on my show, as always, I'm Jeff. I start every episode with that. So I kind of feel like I had claim to it, although his channel is literally Jeff Geerling, and so he has more of like a primary claim to Jeff. But we were at 45 Drives over in Sydney, Nova Scotia this last year, and all the other creators had showed up, but Jeff was like 10 minutes late for doing so. I think he was shooting his pigeon video. Yes. So we're all sitting down in the conference room, and someone goes, "Where's Jeff? Where's Jeff at?" And I went, "I'm right here." And they said, "No. Where's Geerling at?" And they go, "Oh, by the way, what do we call you? Because you know, there's Jeff and then there's Jeff." I said, "Just call him Other Jeff." So I kind of feel like that's canon because it was also witnessed by Techno Tim and Wendell, and they agreed with me. So,
but what does it take to have like a cohort? You know, because there's other creators in that space that get a vote in this.
Right.
So,
I mean, I could bring in, you know, Ian Cuttress and see what he had to say about it. You know, see which Jeff is his primary Jeff.
Depends on which one has like pampered him with some compliment about something he did lately.
That's very true. Yeah. I did take him out for drinks like 2 weeks ago. So
yeah, you've been much more recent. Last time I saw him was last year in the UK.
Okay.
I visited him and he gave me one of, I thought I had it here, but I don't. I have one of those little the mugs for the Tech Potato.
Oh yeah, I have his mug as well. Yep.
Getting that home was a tough thing when I didn't have much space in the luggage, and Raspberry Pi also handed me like 3 shirts. Yeah. And I had all my camera equipment, so I stuffed the mug into around a couple shirts into another thing and stuffed it next to my camera and really hoped it didn't shatter because that was my camera too.
Yeah, one of these days I need to make it over to Raspberry Pi. Maybe with my upcoming Pico project,
They have a new headquarters, and it has an awesome maker space in it now. The old one had like nothing. They had a cool lab, but the lab was like off limits, except for I got to go in there, but I can't say anything about it.
Right.
But they have this giant maker space with 3D printing and like some other things that are. It's just really nice now.
Very cool. Yeah. No, it's on my list to go check out one of these days. So, anyway, we do have a little bit of news tonight. VMware is back in the news again because, it turns out they blinked first when it comes to canceling certain agreements and licensure. We've got some talk about Helldivers, about Sony being the one to blink this time, for the betterment of the community, and some potential fallout from that. Some potential news about the next NVIDIA flagship GPU, and an attack against VPN tunnels that apparently has existed since 2002 that may have already been used in the wild that no one really knows about. So, lots of things we can get into.
The governments know about that.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. You know what? Why don't we go ahead and start there? I feel like that one's going to be the kind of the most relevant or thing that people should take away from the show. And as we get off base later, it doesn't really matter as much. But apparently there is being discovered an attack for VPN tunnels, and it's since been named Tunnel Vision. But essentially what it is a it's not even a man-in-the-middle attack. You do a little bit more on the development side of things. Maybe you can help explain a little bit more about how this is actually implemented. But basically what it does is it's tricking the VPN client to force it to send its packets pre-encryption over the non-VPN tunnel line. So normally it goes through a two-factor encryption. It gets sent through a tunnel direct to its destination, and then there's a handshake that happens, and then the packets are decrypted on the other side. In this case, it's fooling it into not using the VPN and encrypting it, but instead just sending its packets out.
It seems like it's like option 121, which I don't know as much about. I am trying to work up my knowledge of networking, but networking is like voodoo magic. I know enough to get things done, but not enough to explain it. But it seems like it's like it's getting in under the VPN layer, and I think Android. Isn't it Android that has a way to not do that by basically not implementing option 121, or maybe it's Android on Chromebooks or something? There was one.
I think Linux in general, because the primary exploitation of this has been in Windows, from what I've been reading. Direct quote from the article: the effect of tunnel vision is the victim's traffic is now decloaked and being routed through the attacker directly. The attacker can read, drop, or modify the leaked traffic, and the victim maintains their connection to both the VPN and the internet. So it acts as kind of a rerouted man-in-the-middle type attack using that option 121. And I believe there was a mention of... Android is the only operating system that is fully immunized from the attack because it doesn't implement option 121. There you go.
Doesn't have that option.
Yeah. There are also apps on Linux that can minimize the exploit being used as well. So not a guarantee, though.
Yeah. Have you ever taken a VPN sponsorship on your channel?
Not directly. I work with Nord quite a bit, but the only product I've promoted of them has been NordPass. They've approached me about NordVPN a couple of times. I will say, whenever a VPN has approached me, about a potential sponsorship or integration or ad read, I always ask, what was your most recent source code audit? Is that audit public? And Nord, to their credit, is one of only 3 that I'm aware of that has done a full top-to-bottom server and client-side source code audit. The other being Surfshark is the other one that I'm aware of.
Yeah, because I've worked with Surfshark a few times in the past year, and I mean, before Surfshark, I used ExpressVPN a little bit. I've used Nord, Surfshark, and Express, I think. But whenever I do those ads, I tell them, like, I'm not going to say, like, just go use that, and they're okay with it. That's part of the reason I've liked Surfshark more than some of the other ones. They kind of give you that freedom. But I make the point, like, with any VPN that you're using, if you're not in full control of the VPN, it's a nice tool to have. Like, I use it for bypassing blackout restrictions, to watch an MLB game or an NHL game.
Right.
Like, I think it's dumb that I pay $50 or whatever it is, and I can't watch a game because they're in my city. Like, that's just silly.
I'm literally wearing a Trailblazer t-shirt right now. So yes, I fully understand your pain with we're locked out by Comcast in our local area. So
and it's hard to make that point in 60 seconds. And I say like, oh, protect your privacy in a Wi-Fi cafe or something. But the point I try to get across without being so blatant about it, because then they might reject the sponsorship or whatever, is you don't have the full trust if you don't control the VPN.
Right.
So if you have your own WireGuard thing, there's still ways to get around some of those too. If somebody can get on your network. So it just always goes back to, defense in depth and all the security principles, because like we throw all these IoT devices out there, and I have a couple at the office that I have a task list, and it's on there, like, put those in the VLAN, and I just never have done that. So I have these 2 little things that are like, I know if I get hacked, it's going to be one of them, and I'm not going to tell you guys what it is, but I know it's going to be one of those 2 devices. Somebody from Russia or China or wherever it gets through. I just have to not offend those people, because I did last year. They were DDoSing me for like a month.
Oh, that's right. I remember you talking about that.
I think it was like 4 or 5 terabytes of traffic in a day, which my VPS could not handle. So I jumped behind Cloudflare. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. I don't have symmetrical gig here at my house, but I do have 2 ISPs. I have Comcast, and I also keep Starlink up. And I also use Starlink when I'm traveling. And so we have a little travel trailer, and I've used that to actually do my show remotely before, which means, number one, that means that Starlink is a 100% write-off because I use it for business twice a year.
That's the way to do it.
Right. Well, how else would I, ensure business continuity? I have to do my live show. And so every once in a while, I'll, go camping, and tell you what, that camping trip was a write-off because I moved my office that day.
You just have to be careful with how much you let other people enjoy your same write-off.
Right, exactly. But no, I do have it set up where Starlink is the fallback here at the house. So my primary ISP comes in, and my router is set to send 100% of traffic through that, unless there's a break in that connection, and then it reverts over to Starlink. So it's not like we're using Starlink to stream Netflix during the day or something like that. And that's kind of how I also justify that, is it is there to ensure business continuity. So
yeah, somebody asked if we both use HP Aruba. I have one Aruba switch that somebody who used to work at Aruba, they might still be at HP now. They sent that to me as a surplus switch when I was doing something that they said, this is the perfect switch for that. And it's been so handy.
Yeah.
It makes you really want to use enterprise switches more, but the cost,
Cost, noise, big part of it. For everything that we do in Home Lab, you can tame a lot of enterprise servers. You can do knock-to-a-fan swaps and things like that. When you get into switching and, high-end PoE hardware, it's another beast.
And the fan is this long.
It's another beast entirely, right?
You can't just stack up 8 knock-to-a-fans and get that to go.
Yeah. I spent 13 years in a business environment that primarily dealt with HP Aruba. that was our main vendor. That was, 80% of our server stack and probably 80 to 90% of our network stack. So I'm very familiar with HP and Aruba products. Grew up learning ProCurve and all that kind of stuff. In my home lab, I've attempted to use enterprise switches a couple of times. It just has not gone well. And so my home lab or my home network is still Unify at the core. I've got a whatever their UDM. That's the UDM Pro is my main firewall. And then I've got MikroTik under that.
Yep.
And that works fantastic.
I'm kind of settling on MikroTik just because it's the cost, the value is all over the place on that. So
yeah.
Anyway, except for 2.5 gig, they only have a couple switches. You reviewed one last year, but they only have a couple that are really nice. I think I have a Netgear at the desk because there wasn't one of theirs that fit my use case. So
yeah.
I hope they do 2.5 gig PoE 8 or 16 port. That's the next switch I want to buy, and there's none that are like a good price yet. So
right. Right now, I think the one that I reviewed last year was their 8 port 2.5 plus 2 10 gig. And that one I found a lot of utility. I actually run it back here on my desk right here. It gets me 10 gig to one workstation or a test bench, or what, if I'm doing a server thing, it gets me 10 gig there, or 2.5 that I can spread out to a couple other desktops. And so that's worked out really well.
Yeah.
But yeah, as far as like a 16 or a 24 port, there's not a lot out there right now.
It's mostly
especially
the enterprise
with PoE
ones that are like 80 decibels, and there's no way I can't do that. It's funny. I built this whole place with the server room that I can close the doors on, and it actually mutes out that noise.
Yeah.
But I didn't put any HVAC back there.
Oh.
There's one vent, so I did it. I closed it for a day and ran the Storinator, the XL60, and it was like, oh, it's great. You can barely hear it. It's like a whisper.
Yeah.
But the temperature in the room got up to 95 or something. I'm like, maybe I should turn that off and and open the door. So
how is your power usage on your home lab? That is one thing that I started focusing on a lot last year. So the beginning of last year, I decommissioned a bunch of servers. I consolidated a bunch of stuff. I was running about 800 watts in my server stack. I actually got that all the way down to about 350, trending 400. And that was with a Storinator AV15. That was with a small backup server. That was with 2 virtualization servers and my full switching stack.
Yeah. I've started to put the third reality outlets on everything as I'm putting in the racks, and then you have a thing like have your server behind this little consumer switch or consumer power outlet. Not the best thing in the world. And when you update the firmware on the switch or on the third reality, it shuts off and turns back on. So I might have to rethink that and pay the extra money for the PDU that actually measures power. But that's a future problem. But I've been measuring, and right now at the studio space where I have the HL15 MikroTik 25 gig switch, my DVR that I'm running off a Raspberry Pi, but it's in that a rack mount 1U case. And then what else is down there? There's something else in that rack, but that whole rack is only about 220 watts right now.
Nice.
Bad. And my goal is to try to I don't want to consolidate and do all VMs because I think that's more boring. The funny thing is, like, I always approach, like, I used to do everything VMs, everything cloud, all that kind of stuff, and I thought it was amazing. How much could you fit on one box efficiently?
Right.
But since I did that all the time, I'm like, I want to break everything out. I want
Right.
a server for this and that. And that's why I like the Pi, because it's like not many watts. So
Yeah, you can just throw a couple
25
more
of them.
boxes at it for a purpose. And, yeah.
Whereas everybody else is like, oh, I want to save power, so I want to use VMs and Proxmox and all that. It's like, I want to get away from that, go to bare metal. So
Yeah, and see, I think at the core of this, we are hardware enthusiasts. That's why we get into a lot of this stuff. And there is something disappointing when you walk out to your network rack, and it's like, yeah, there's 3 boxes running everything, and 2 of them are identical, and I built them to be as low power as possible. It's like,
so this is my next big long project, is the 10-inch rack.
Oh, little 10-inch rack, nice.
Get that in the frame, yeah. So I'm going to try to replicate the whole thing in this rack with at least like 30 or 60 terabytes of storage.
Mm.
I'm talking to somebody about making a 10-inch disk shelf. So either 2, 4, or 6 hard drives. And then I could have either a Pi or, these are mini ITX cases on the bottom there. You could put a full PC in there. So,
that's cool.
I don't know. I think that's fun because like a lot of people don't have the space. Like I built a server closet. Like
right.
Most people can't just do that.
Yeah. Yeah. I've got a 42U rack out in my garage. I'm looking at eventually adding a second, but that's not really realistic for a lot of people.
We're not all that. Who is that? There's a YouTube channel. Somebody who's a CTO. He showed his home lab. It was going around on the Reddit, the home lab.
He's the guy that goes downstairs into the basement with
and it's like a giant. He has like 2 full racks and all.
That dude's 30 miles from me, and his name is Jeff. Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
I discovered
to figure out a way to get in there, and
I discovered that video today, and I'm like, I need to call him or something.
I was watching, I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Are you sure that you're not actually a data center posing as a house?
Yeah.
I think, digital spaceport.
Yeah.
Yep.
So there is
garage with his cars, and he had a workbench that was like you could design a rocket on that workbench.
Mm-hmm.
And then he had a vintage area with all these old computers that were in like mint condition.
Yeah. Yeah, he's where we're going to be in like 20 years. You realize that, right?
If we play things out well and don't turn into some crazy hoarding person. That's
right.
The problem with retro tech is that when I'm on a Mac Classic, I'm trying to restore it because the first computer I ever remembered using was a Mac SE30.
Okay.
The first computer I owned was an Intel 386
Mm.
that I built from scraps my dad brought home.
Yep.
But the first computer I used was that Mac, so I'm trying to restore the Classic to kind of play those games that I remember, like Little Space Lander and all that.
Yeah.
But when you start doing it, you realize there's a lot of little accessories and things. You're like, oh, I could never afford that back then. Now I can.
Right.
You have like a box for each computer of all these little accessories.
Out in my garage, I still have a Macintosh Color Classic. So SE30 body, but with the color screen and whatnot.
The fancier Classic.
Yes. I have an Apple IIgs with a monitor, keyboard, double disk drive, 30 or so accessories for it, kind of like what you're saying. Mm-hmm. I've got a couple Pentium 1 boxes out there. I've got a 233 MMX. I haven't touched this stuff in years. and the practical part of my brain says, just get rid of it. You're not using it. You've figured out other ways to do this thing through emulation or software or whatever. Why are you... But the non-logical side of my brain goes, because it makes me happy.
Yes. My dad just came by, so I got the passion in IT and stuff from him. He came by with a box because we're gonna try to do some videos like showing old things that I don't know what they are because like that's his generation. And he pulled out this bag of cables, and when I was doing my Mac stuff last month, I remembered looking like, how do I get this SCSI cable? And it's like $95 on eBay or something. And he bangs out a bag, and it's like it has 3 of those cables and 2 of these adapters, and it's like the ones that they don't make anymore.
Yeah.
So it's and now I'm like, okay. And then
that just goes to prove, gentlemen, never throw away your box of cables.
Just let it grow forever.
That's right. If you play your cards right, they start breeding, and you'll get the weird adapters that you need down the line.
Or in 12 generations, someone will sell it for like 300 whatever currency is in the future.
Yeah. I got a couple super chats to get to. Elmo sends over $10. 1 Jeff, 2 Jeff, Red Jeff, Blue Jeff.
Nice.
Thank you.
Yeah, I saw that one pop across.
Mario sends over 28 Canadian. Thank you so much. Hello there, both Jeff in the same show. Love it. Have a few beers on me. I'm having an Odin's Triple Imperial Stout, 11%. Another heavy hitter. Very nice.
You're not too far off of this.
Right. Oh, I've got some in the fridge that put the isopropyl to shame. So, the legal peak for being able to purchase beer in the state of Oregon is 20%. You can't have beer that is over 20%. I've got a couple that are at 22. I know of beers that are 27, 30, 33. And then of course I do have a couple like cask strength whiskeys, so like 60% and things. So
Yeah, anything over like 10%, and it's pungent, and I can't even drink
yeah,
it. What was Chartreuse? That's the one that's over. They make it in France or something, and it's
yeah,
imported.
yeah.
And that one was, I don't know, 25 or 30%, and
Hmm.
I took one sip, and I was like, oh, like I almost wanted to throw up. So I
Yeah.
can't handle alcohol that well. I don't know if
No.
it's my Irish blood or my disposition or whatever.
It's definitely an acquired taste.
Yeah.
I don't care what anyone says. There are such things as smooth whiskeys, but you do have to build up to them. You don't just go and take a sip of whiskey and go, "Oh yeah, that's really good." No, no, those people are lying to you.
Yep.
Green Protagonist sends over $5. Thank you very much. Does other Jeff Geerling have the 10-inch mini rack handy? That thing is so cool.
Yep. And Wayne was asking what this is. It's Brick River from St. Louis and Kansas City.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I do have that 10-inch rack. That video, I posted it to my third channel, Level 2 Jeff.
Yep.
And because I was like, nobody's gonna really watch this. It's just whatever, and it like blew up on that channel. I'm like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
I guess I'll do.
I
the
didn't
10-inch rack.
even know you had that channel, and it showed up in my feed. So
It knows. It's like
Yeah.
Home Lab. It must
Yes.
show to Jeff. But after that, like 10 people emailed me. There is actually one little 10-inch PDU, the cutest little thing, except it's
that thing is
$47.
adorable.
Yeah. So I'm hoping that I'm talking to a couple companies to try to get them to make PDUs, a couple more accessories for these racks.
Mhm.
And a lot of people are mentioning, like, why not make it a little bit deeper? Because you can see, I'm trying to get there.
Yeah.
It sticks out just a tiny bit in the back. And that's for mini ITX. But my goal, I'm waiting to get a few more parts. I want to build like a 32 node cluster in this rack that I could carry around with a UPS.
That'd be cool. Yeah.
That only uses like 100 or 200 watts or something. But yeah, that'll be fun.
Geerling, if somebody built a DC UPS for a 10-inch rack, what voltage would you want? 12, 24, 48?
So it's funny, like what I really want is that's why I'm looking for a 16 port PoE switch 2.5 gig
Mhm.
from MikroTik. They have an 8 port and that works. And MikroTik makes this was another thing I found out after the video. They make a little kit to adapt if you buy one of the ones that fits in a half rack, you can pop these on and then it's a half rack switch.
Oh, nice. It's exactly, okay.
So,
Very
but
cool.
those kits aren't on Amazon. They're only from like a couple stores that I could find online. So all these things, it's like 10-inch could be a thing, and I want to make it a thing. So I'm going to do whatever I can to make it a thing.
Nice.
Promote it. And they sold out. DeskPi sold out of the racks like that day, and they are
Nice.
ramping up some production now. And I talked to My Electronics in the Netherlands, which is
Mhm.
my ancestry is Irish, Netherlands. So
Yeah.
I'm tying those in, but they said that they're working on a full line of accessories too,
Mhm.
but it's not like super high priority. And I'm like, well, you should make it high priority.
Right. I'm going to bring you customers, whether you have something or not.
I will promote it, even if it's just a wish.
Yeah.
Yep. Uh-oh, it sounds like SJK got sucked into the Bluey vortex. I don't
Yes,
know
he
how many,
did.
episodes.
Yeah, no, some form of bluey, gosh, Bubble Guppies is another one that's always on. I have 3 kids. I know you have, how many kids do you have? I forget.
4 with 1 on the way, which
That's
is
right.
why,
Yeah.
unfortunately, I won't be able to make it to 45 drives this year.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I don't know if I can spill the beans on that. But
Yeah.
if there is something there, I won't be at it.
Yes. We may or may not have received an email. There may or may not be something happening sometime August-ish. But
yes, another one.
congratulations.
Yeah, it'll be the problem is that when you go to 4 to 5, then a lot of things change. Like our table has 6 chairs. So once that baby's out of the high chair, what are we going to do? And then our car has 7 seats, but it's a minivan. Like, the logistics of it get hard when you have 2 seats in it. So
I have an aunt and uncle who wound up with 6 kids. They Brady bunched it. One of them had 3, the other had 3, and then they got married when the oldest was like 12,
Bring
and
them
so
all together.
they had 6 kids under 12, and they wound up with like a 15 passenger, Chevy, extended van kind of thing, and
That's what happens. The problem
yeah,
is I'm fighting against that. It's like, no, we got to find a way. Honda makes the 8-seater.
uh-huh,
It's, I don't know. We got to figure something out because I want the vehicle to fit in the garage. That's my goal. Here in St. Louis,
oof,
we have basements, so our
yeah,
garages can be used for cars, which is nice.
yeah,
That way, it's raining and you don't have to go out in the rain to get to your car.
yep.
Oh, but once you go homeschool van, you can't get it in the garage anymore.
Right, exactly. Yeah, there's a size of vehicle between short bus and Sienna, and you're trying to thread
Yeah.
the needle right there.
There's an opportunity to put 2 kids like, horizontal above the other ones or
Mhm.
something. Like if one of them's taking a nap, you shove them in at the top.
Right. I mean, can you get a van with like the luggage uh, compartments underneath? So if one of them's sleeping, you just kind of slide them in, close the door.
The Chryslers, the non-hybrid have compartments under where the seats fold into, so you
Hmm.
could do something. I mean, when I was a kid, they had a bench in the back of the station wagon that we had.
Right,
You
right.
could sit back there. You could fit 7 kids in a station wagon. So why can't we? There's the grocery area in the back of the minivan.
Well, it was something about getting rear-ended and losing 2/3 of your children. Like
Well,
they,
yeah, I think that
yeah,
might be a safety concern. Someone
right.
says rack mount kids. That could be an option. How many you only need like probably 3 you, maybe 4 you for a baby.
I mean, if you get a 36-inch deep rack, you could stack them
Yeah.
pretty easily.
Yep. Until they hit 5, 6, 7 years old. But
Right.
yeah, the hard thing is like there's a window. So if you space out the kids and you get married really young, you could
Hmm.
have a window where your older kids are old enough to drive, and then it's not a big deal. But when they're all under 16, that's when you have to find a vehicle that fits them all, or
Yeah.
everything is 2 vehicles, and
Yeah.
that gets annoying. I don't know. Or we just tell our oldest like, suck it up for a couple of years. You're going to be sitting between the other 2 sisters.
Yeah, you're going to be between 2 car seats for a while.
Yeah. Yep.
Uh, but hey, congratulations. That is very
No,
cool
thanks.
to hear you got another one on the way.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, yeah, we may or may not gotten emails from 45 Drives. We may or may not be gracing the West Coast or the East Coast again. So
I do want to find some other way to not participate necessarily in the summit that
mhm.
may or may not be happening, but
Yeah, yeah.
do something fun storage related where I can work with a couple people. One of those things is I'm talking to these companies that make these mini racks. I don't know. I think it'd be cool if we had like a competition where each of us had a mini rack and we said like how much horsepower can you fit in it, or how much performance per watt, or something
Yeah.
like that, with a certain threshold. You couldn't just put one little rock chip board in it and get the best. It has to have at least this many points on whatever test that we choose.
Right. I mean, I could probably get a loaner Grace Hopper, one of the new 10-inch wide. I
Find a
could
way to
jam
mount
one of
that in
those
there.
in there.
Do they make a mini ITX board for that?
They
Actually,
do
you have those with the 4-node
the
servers.
dual blade. Yeah,
Yeah, you could pull
yeah,
one out and find a way. You just need to make one of those companies have a half rack. And
yeah.
you're like, a half what?
The thing is, no matter what ideas we come up with, I know Wendell will find a way to cheese it. Like he will find some esoteric piece of hardware that he jams into that little space.
Yep.
And,
Yeah, speaking of weird hardware like that, somebody just emailed me that works for an ISP, and they mentioned that they found some old, I forget what they're called. They're like Intel Compute Accelerator cards or something. It has 3 Xeon CPUs on one PCI Express card, and it's 3 Xeon systems, and it was like a very stopgap solution for like transcoding 5 or 10 years ago. And they mentioned like, hey, you could maybe see if you could get one of these and play around with it. And I
was
might.
it was it Zeon Phi by any chance? Because there's the
Oh,
old Knights Landing, Knights Bridge, like the 5110Ps and
no, it
things
was
like
like a
that.
1200 or something. I forget which one it
Okay.
was. It was from 2012 or 2011, the chip, but they made them in 2016 or 2017. It was a
Hmm.
really weird board. And I think Der Bauer did a video on it too last year.
Okay. I'll have to look that up. I don't remember seeing that.
It
I'm aware
was
of
weird. I had never seen the
Yeah.
thing before, and I looked up the model number and found Der Bauer's video, but there's nothing online about it because it was like
Yeah.
it was only made for certain like very tiny niche use case of transcoding HEVC content like 5 years ago before it was in the processor.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, I have some of the Intel accelerator cards. I don't know if you have any. If you wanted to take I have like 5 of them on my shelf right now. They're like
on my shelf. That's the problem
right
with all these things.
Yeah, they're like the 64 core Zeon Phi accelerator cards.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, speaking of esoteric hardware and speaking of Phi, there is 1 or 2 SKUs of Zeon Phi that enable VTX in the instruction set. So you can use a Zeon Phi accelerator to run virtual machines.
Mm-hmm.
I've been digging for that card or that CPU for years and have never found one.
Huh. Yeah, this one, the problem was it was so niche that it wasn't like they had a weird driver setup where you had to patch the kernel in CentOS only.
Right.
It didn't work in any other Linux distro to get this card to even get recognized. And then you had to use a special utility to get access to the card because it didn't use normal like PCI Express or networking or anything. It had a special driver.
Mm-hmm.
But it would be cool just for the fun of it to run like a 3-node cluster on a PCI Express card. Because I mean, I've done Pis on PCI Express cards, but that's boring now.
So apparently my Discord, Coffee and Cynicism, chimes in. It's the VCA2.
Yeah, I think that might be like they made 2 models of it. The VCA2 was more easy. The VCA1 is the one that the guy had emailed me about, which doesn't have the ports on the back, and it didn't have as much support, and it was only in a few places. And it was just a weird card. But it's the same thing. That's like the better version, I guess.
Okay.
Still weird.
Oh yeah, it contained 3 Xeon E3 1585 LV5, which would have been V5. Gosh, that would have been Haswell for that, and then Iris Pro P580 graphics.
Yeah, it was used for transcoding, I'm pretty sure, and that was like the main purpose.
Oh, and you could SSH into the CPU similar to how Zeon Phi did their add-in cards. Okay, so yeah, similar stacking tech, but Haswell instead of Knight's Landing. Interesting.
Yeah, it's a strange thing. If I end up getting it, I might post a little bit about it and see, because it's going to be weird enough that I don't think I could hack into it on my own.
Yeah, that's going to be one where you have to find someone who knows.
Yeah.
Apparently VCA, the original VCA, so the one you're talking about. Oh wow. Hold on. I found a listing with some internal shots of it. So this is on eBay right now. $350. You can see the 3 packages with SODIMM memory slots.
Yeah, DDR3 on that one, which is like I have DDR4 SODIMMs. I don't have any DDR3.
That is wild.
Yeah, so another difference is the VCA2 has the fans, which is nice because you can just install it. The VCA1, you need, I think it's 275 watt TDP total.
Right.
So you need a lot of air moving through that thing.
I recently picked up an Asus 2U server that is meant for GPU acceleration. And so it has 4 2-slot X16 slots, but it has two 80mm blowers going at each stack of cards.
Yeah.
In 2 80mm blowers in parallel, and so they're feeding one another. Actually, it's not that bad because they're 80mm instead of 40.
Oh yeah.
And there's a good amount of static pressure. Right now, I'm doing some testing with some NVIDIA V100s, so some Volta accelerators.
And did you post a picture of that?
I did.
Yeah, I got them.
I was running those at about 180 watts each, 55 degrees Celsius, and the fans were maybe running at like 35%. Like it is more than... It's the loudest server in my rack, but only by a couple decibels. Like you could hear it running, but it wasn't much louder than the AV15 or a couple of the other boxes that I have in there. So
yeah. John mentioned looks like a late night drinking purchase, which how many times does that happen? But speaking of those, like I think probably all of us here had a thought in our mind that we knew was the wrong thought, but about the Cheyenne supercomputer, which I know you had on the list.
We all looked at it. I'm not going to say we didn't. I'm not going to say I considered it. I'm not going to say I didn't consider it. Yeah, so this has been making the rounds for a couple of weeks. I think I mentioned it in passing maybe 2 weeks ago, but yeah, a Cheyenne data center that was once on the top 50 for global data centers found its way on, was it eBay or was it another auction? Yeah,
No,
it was
eBay.
a
government auction.
Oh, government auction, that's right. But has a winning bid of $480,000. This was something, I want to get the numbers right, 8,064 Intel Xeon 2697 V4s, which is really funny because those are actually the exact same CPU that I just put into this 2U GPU accelerator box. So they have 8,062 more of those CPUs than I do. But 18 core, 36 threads each of them paired with 4,890 64 gig ECC compliant DDR4 modules for a total of 313 terabytes of physical memory.
Yeah, I liked reading different analysis. Like, what would be your break even to sell off just the CPUs or the CPUs and the RAM modules and all that, and also accounting for depreciation when you start dumping 1,000 of them on the market at the same time.
That was going to be exactly my point, is if you're looking at buying this to liquidate, you have to think of the sheer quantity of hardware that you're going to put into the market that exists only because some of these parts are still kind of exorbitant. 64 gig DDR4 ECC DIMMs, those are upwards of $200 a piece. What happens when you add 8,000 of those to the market? Maybe you're looking at at $140 a piece now instead. You've literally cut your own profit margin by 30%, simply by selling these.
Yeah. The freight moving of that system would be tens of thousands.
Oh, you're going to have to go to Wyoming. Like, there's no doubt. You're going to have to rent, 5 or 6 U-Hauls. I think someone said, actually, they did the math on it. You would need 8 trailers simply for the gross weight. You would need 10, or you would need somewhere between 8 and 10 40-foot trailers simply to pass gross vehicle weight on each load.
Yeah, you couldn't stuff everything in because of the weight.
Right. Yeah, because you've got 40,000 pounds to work with. These are all water-cooled servers too. You're not just going to drop these into an air-cooled data center and call it a day. You need the infrastructure to run this as well.
That makes me think about all these deployments with the GPU servers. Like at least the Cheyenne components could be broken up into other things and spread out on the market at some point.
Right.
These new GPU servers, they're so purpose-built. They're kind of like ASICs for Bitcoin. Like, it's pretty much worthless.
Yeah.
In 6 months or a year. I wish that they could find, like, that's one reason why I anytime I talk to anybody at NVIDIA or AMD, wherever, like, how can you make it so that this is not a single purpose thing? Because those GPUs could be put into other services too. It's the whole right to repair movement exists because we see, like, don't lock it down.
Right. I've done a couple of videos looking at X mining cards, and is there a purpose? Can you buy these for general purpose? Can I use this as an encoding card? Let's say I just want a Plex or a Jellyfin or a Blue Iris encoder. Can I buy a GP106 mining card? The answer is no, because they disabled NVINC on it, and it's like, why would you do that?
And you had that cool machine that the one that had all the blades, like the vertical blades, just a few months ago, I think.
The BC250, the AMD, X mining rig that they took the PlayStation APUs and cut a couple of units out of it. And I'm going, this is my dream server, 12 nodes of whatever I want it to be.
Yep.
But you have no drivers that work. You have no stacks that work. You have and you cut so much hardware out of it. It doesn't make sense as an x86 box either.
Yep.
What is this after mining is dead?
Yeah.
And the answer is literally a paperweight. There's nothing you can do with it that makes sense over any other hardware package.
Yeah. It is. It's a slight amount of precious resources packaged up into a thing that will not ever probably make it back into the value chain.
I mean, it's why I look so hard at, and Wendell does as well, with, pushing forward SRIOV, hardware splitting, that kind of thing. Because, once I replace, I have an RTX 3090. I just upgraded to an RTX 4080 supercard. And it's fantastic, but I've got an RTX 3090 here. Why can't I put that into a dedicated box and then run 4 virtualized gaming rigs for my kids off of it? Mm-hmm. What is the impetus to sanctioning that off for enterprise only? Yeah. Why is Intel not releasing flex cards? Why is SRIOV not a thing on the A770 or ARC cards? It's like, I understand you don't want to provide enterprise level support, so don't release the drivers and let the community figure it out. I guarantee the community of enthusiasts will figure it out enough to make it work. And that's all you need to do. If you want to sell enterprise support, NVIDIA, Intel, AMD, etc., that's fine. You can sell custom packages and custom support, but not releasing the drivers, and all 3 of them are guilty of this, not releasing the driver packages. All it does is kill any potential hardware use and scare away customers.
Yep. Well, somewhat. NVIDIA can make whatever hardware they want, and people are going to buy that.
NVIDIA prints money. But I've questioned AMD on that, because AMD, one of their big things when it came to virtualized GPU instances, was we are open source and driver agnostic. You can download the drivers and you can just use them. There's no licensing for them. However, they have them tied into their own repo, and their repo is license only. Mm-hmm. So while yes, you don't have to pay you still have to have a support license from a third-party vendor to access their repo to get the drivers.
Yeah. I don't know. It'd be nice if there was like a law in the books or something that says after X amount of time, whatever it is has to be opened up. There's lots of problems with that, but it's like, I don't know. I'm an open source guy anyway. Well, I'm a free software guy. Yeah, who likes open source, but just made a video saying open source is dead. So
we are often the biggest critics of the things that we love, and I love virtualized GPU, which is why I am so incredibly critical of the decision making within that market. I love open source software, and like you, that's why we are so incredibly critical of the decision makers in that space. When it comes to the whole Red Hat situation, when it comes to, AMD locking drivers behind paywalls, when it comes to Intel, saying, oh, we're going to support SRIOV on all of our product stacks, and then just not. It's like, no.
Yeah. pfSense is the latest in the past couple of weeks, doing the paywall for the installer download. Not the paywall, the login and all that.
Yep. I believe TrueNAS tried to do that for a while as well. They were trying to make you do an account for logins, and people went ape crazy, and they went, oh, maybe that was a bad idea.
Yeah. You have something on your list too.
I was going to say, speaking of forced accounts,
not on the open source side of it, but just the whole community aspect. Like, this is 101 for anyone running a community.
Yeah.
Yes. Requirement.
Yeah, speaking of changing the rules halfway through and forcing people to log in with new credentials and new services, which they did not want in the first place, Sony kind of found themselves in the crosshairs of 250,000 negative reviews on Steam because of their treatment of Helldivers. If you're not aware of this situation, basically Helldivers 2 has been the the new hotness multiplayer game. It's one of the most fun, one of the most engaging, and one of the most explosive communities that's happened in the multiplayer gaming space in quite some time. I recently went to PDX LAN back in April, and it was probably on one of every 5 PCs that I walked by of a 900 person LAN. Like, I guarantee we were responsible for 200 instances, if not more, just at that one LAN event. But it was available through Steam, and it was on PlayStation. On Steam or on PlayStation, obviously, if you want to play online, you have to have a PlayStation Live account or PS Network, whatever they call it. And you had to log in, but that's the normally accepted metric of doing that. With Steam, it was log in with Steam, join multiplayer. Cool. There was no secondary or third-party launcher. It was just log in and start playing. Well, Sony, in their infinite wisdom, decided that, you know what, we've got all these players on PC who are not using the PlayStation Network. Why don't we introduce them to the greatness and spread democracy, as it were, of the PlayStation Network? And decided to, in the 13th hour, require a PSN sign-in. Retroactively. If you want to play Helldivers 2, which is a live service game, you will now be required to sign in with PlayStation. Couple of problems with that. Number one, you've now retroactively changed the user agreement and what is required to use your service. Textbook, don't do this to users. I don't care who your users are. That's a dick move. Number two is the PlayStation Network is not available in 177 countries that Steam is. So all of these players around the world who may have bought the game on Steam no longer were going to be able to log in and play this game that they paid money for. This naturally led to some heavy criticism of Sony and their decisions. And I believe it stood at 211,000 negative reviews within 4 days.
For me, it's like you done goofed up when I see on my feeds things about your game that I've never played it. I've heard of it, but it's like I've played Minecraft, Halo, there's a few games I've played.
Right.
Helldivers was never in my circle of anything, but I saw like 5 different videos from people who aren't like Helldivers. It's like general people. Mm-hmm. And when you go that far and then you go further beyond that's when it's just insane. Like,
yeah.
Before the show, I mentioned I saw on Twitter, I think earlier, that they fired the community manager who was encouraging people to review bomb because he was sympathizing with the users. It's like, okay, this is like you were this far and now you're like that far. Like, come on.
Yeah. So yeah, this story has a couple of twists and turns to it. And they've all kind of developed over this last weekend. So Sony decided to reverse course. In the most CEO 3 envelopes response I've ever heard. Helldivers fans, we've heard you. We heard your feedback on the Helldivers 2 account linking update. The May 6th update, which would have required Steam, PlayStation Network account linking for new players and for current players beginning May 30th, will not be moving forward. We are still learning what is best for PC players, and your feedback has been invaluable. This has got to be just the new age of blame it on the guy before me. The whole CEO 3 envelopes trope. Like, this is open envelope 1 in case of crisis. You're not still learning. You pulled a move that was not popular. You had already done the risk reward analysis of we're going to lose 5 to 10% of our player base, but we're going to gain, 300,000 new PlayStation accounts, and maybe they'll buy another service from us, or maybe we'll evangelize them to how great the PlayStation environment is, or whatever. What they didn't expect is 90% of players to revolt.
And I think it started hitting them when the refunds happened, because there was a lot. It wasn't like a small portion. If you suddenly see like a $2 million hit in one day, That's a lot bigger.
Yeah. So this is the review tracking of Helldivers through the weeks. So from release in February through the May 6th update. And you can see the 200 plus thousand negative reviews that dropped because of that update. And a lot of those reviews wound up requesting refunds. Steam, in another twist to this, because of the retroactive change by Sony, waived their refund policy of 2 weeks or 2 hours played and started issuing refunds, hitting Sony directly in the pocketbook. That was another thing that Sony probably said, well, they've already bought the game, so we've already got their money, but we can force players who want to keep playing to join the network. I don't think they expected Steam to play an Uno reverse on them.
Yep. Yeah, Steam is like the best thing that happened. It's not there are some bad things about it. Like I do like having boxes or discs for games.
Right.
That is something like you cannot take that away. You can take away the activation servers for games that were in that era, but you can emulate that and you can get around it. You can crack the CD so that you can still play the game that you bought. So that's one thing I don't like. But the fact that for many years it was so hard to get games after the CD era and before Steam era was a mess, and Steam really cleaned that up. I'm happy that that they've kept that going. Like
Steam is not perfect, but they're one of the most consumer-friendly mega corporations that we have right now. I mean, the amount of revenue that they do is gargantuan. And the amount of customer support and service that they provide that is a net positive for the consumer can't be understated. Are there things I don't like? Sure. I don't like that every game requires DRM. I don't like that inherently all of my purchases are tied to that Steam account, which is just a cloud-connected account. It's no different than a subscription service. And what happens if Steam goes away? I have a lot of games on Steam. My library is pushing, gosh, 1,200, 1,300 games. I have
more than I have.
Steve, one of my other co-hosts on here on the show, he has 4,800 games on Steam. Do you realize how much value how much money is poured into that account? That is literally just a cloud subscription service.
Yeah.
For better or for worse.
You know, it's crazy. It's sad that I'm surprised by this, but I'm surprised. Like I bought games right when it came out, I bought a few games on the service just to test it out. Those games are still there, and I spun up a VM and put it on there, and I could play those old games. Like, yeah, I'm surprised by that. It's bad that I'm surprised, but I am, because so many services that come and go, they're the enshittification. They become user hostile over the years, and
do me a favor, download Origin and try to play Sims 2. Like, just go do that. Download Epic and try to play, the release.
I downloaded their thing a month or two ago, and it was broken and messy.
It's impossible.
Yeah.
Whereas Steam just kind of works. And that is one of the main things it's got going for it, is it just works. Install it on your PC. It's non-obtrusive. It's not constantly... I don't know what developers that all of the other services have running for them, but can we just get a responsive UI on some game launcher? I wouldn't care if I had to install Ubisoft, uLive or whatever else. If when I clicked the mouse, I didn't have to wait 7 seconds for an animation to play at 2 frames per second before it goes, loading your game now. I just want to play, Far Cry 5. That's all I'm trying to do. And Steam just kind of works.
Yeah. And it even works on like Mac, and it works with emulation layers on ARM. Like it's great. It's like actually decent software.
Right.
Not the best software in the world, but it's decent.
Right. I've played some simpler games on Raspberry Pi 5 on installing Steam from the store and just launching the game, and it's a Windows only game, and it's like, oh, ARM compatibility and Proton, here you go, done.
Yep.
They were simple games, but they worked.
Yeah.
Do that with Origin, do that with Epic, do that with ULive, do that with any other. You can't. It's literally impossible.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Microsoft even had such an opportunity. They wasted it with the Xbox Live game service. But I don't know that. I'm sure books will be written on the whole history of Xbox in the future that really go deep into it. But it's like they had that, and Microsoft. It's funny because like on the developer side, it seems like they've done a better job with services and communities in the past 5 or 10 years. But on the gaming side, they wasted all the goodwill they built up with the Xbox 360.
Yep.
And it's kind of just gone. And they could have transferred that to PC, but they were so focused on the hardware that they let it slip.
They already had the primary and most installed user base gaming system on the planet. And they went, you know what we should do? We should create a different one.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, that was like the Halo 3. I remember spending way too much time playing that in college.
Yep.
And that was like the peak Microsoft. And it doesn't seem like there's anything that really hit that high note since then. But Microsoft Live was hitting on all cylinders. The hardware was great. And they were bringing it over to the PC, which was awesome because I was like, oh, this is great. I don't have to be on the Xbox to play this game.
Yeah.
And they started doing that with a lot of things, but then it just kind of fell apart. And then I think that was around, I don't know, was it the Xbox One or S or whatever it was, the one where they were like, this is now your thing and it has Connect and all this. And it's like,
yeah,
that's not my vision. I wanted to play games.
Right. Yeah. The Xbox One X or Xbox One, the original Xbox One. There we go. Which is not the original Xbox. Let's just call it Xbox 3 because that's what it is. They were like, this is now your home media server hub. It is your live TV stream. It is your movie watching. It's your games. It's your personal assistant. It's your... No. Give me a controller. Halo. Yeah. That's all I want. Stop it.
Pretty much, yeah.
I do have a second beverage, so I'm going to go ahead and open that now. Also from Drop Bear Brewery, Eugene, Oregon. I had this beer yesterday.
I have a second beverage. It's not just has caffeine. That's the only thing in it.
There you go. This one I had yesterday. It shocked the heck out of me. This is the Weil Riley PA. It is a rye hazy IPA, which are words I had never seen put together before. So hazy IPA is a style of pale ale that it ends up with a cloudy beer, more of a heavy citrus fruit, a little acidic kind of style. And it was the main style of beer. It was the main, craze from like 2015 to 2020. In 2020, it kind of evolved into its own really defined style and kind of found its foothold in the market, and everyone started enjoying that. Rye is typically more used in whiskey. So you have rye whiskey as a main example. And it's known in whiskeys for being a little bit spicier. You get like some cinnamon notes with it and things like that. This is a hazy IPA, brewed like a hazy IPA, but then brewed with rye. I'm assuming rye instead of malt. And you end up with this beautiful looking beer that is kind of citrus forward and a little bit spicy. It's delicious. Even better is if you have it in one of my craft computing nucleated pint glasses.
It highlights the beautiful color and taste and texture.
It does, yeah. I'll I'm gonna have to send you a care pack as soon as I so I'll give a brief update on kind of my super secret, not so secret project. I'm developing a temperature sensor using a Raspberry Pi Pico. It's going to be RP2040 based. Monday, I ordered the final version of our beta boards. So I'm getting the final verification boards for those in. I'm going to send a couple out. I'm going to send you one. I'm going to send Wendell one, probably send Tim one, a couple others. I don't want a video made yet. What I want is kind of some
feedback.
Testing, feedback. Put it in your rack. Let me know what you think. What's the user experience like?
Do you have a 10-inch mini rack version?
So right now, I just printed off these really simple cases to use for them. What I'm going to do is include a couple of 1032 bolts on the side. And so there will be a little cutout on this side, but then this side will be squared off, and then you'll have 2 bolts that'll mount into a rack.
Don't fit anywhere.
And then just a USB cable on the bottom end, and then here's your temp probe right there. And so stick it in your rack, connects to Wi-Fi, done. Yeah, kind of what I want is feedback. How's it working? Number one is do I need to tweak any of the hardware? I also don't want the word to get out too far, so I don't want any videos made other than my channel, because I don't want a clone to come out before I produce my final version. Like, that's the worst thing in the world that can happen at this point.
Yes.
So the final version, I'm hoping I will have available for pre-order in October. That's the current timeline. And there will be 2 versions of that board, one of which will be Wi-Fi only with a USB power. The other will be PoE Ethernet. And so if you want to hardwire it and have it as part of your network stack, that'll be there as well. But I'm going to send you 1 or 2 of these. If you could test them out, let me know what you think.
I'll let you know how it works in the mini rack, especially.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, that's another use case that I hadn't accounted for. So
yeah.
But I'll send it along with a little care pack for you. So.
I like it. That'll be fun. Yeah. A lot of smart things don't do PoE, which is sad. Like I have, can you see it? Yeah, here on the wall, the air gradient. For a couple years now, we've been asking, like, can you make a version of the board that's powered by PoE? Because they're Wi-Fi, they use ESP. But it's like, I don't want that. I don't want 3 extra Wi-Fi devices. I'd rather just plug it in and let it be. And then you don't have to have a power outlet near it, which, luckily there is one right here, but I didn't want it right there. I wanted it somewhere else in here.
Yeah, that's one of my biggest gripes with smart devices is they often include, and mine's going to include, dirt cheap Wi-Fi modules, that if you have a single radio Wi-Fi, access point in your house, you are slowing down every other device in your network, because Wi-Fi runs at the speed of your lowest peer, or at the frequency and the overall spectrum of your lowest peer. So if I've got a laptop with Wi-Fi 6A, but then I've got 3 or 4 IoT devices connected to it with the world's cheapest 5 gigahertz radio, I've just tanked my Wi-Fi performance for my $2,000 laptop.
Yeah. Duke Sub mentions too, like the hubs especially. Like, why aren't those PoE? Like, even if it's an option, like the Raspberry Pi doesn't have it on the board, but you can buy a board for it. Like, why not? It's you could have a header, and you could for advanced users only, but sell a thing for $25. That's more money they can make too.
Yep. Chris wants to know if I need beta testers for the PoE Ethernet version. I might. Get in touch with me, likely on my Discord, if you're over on there. If you're not on the Discord, I'm going to plug again, $1 a month, Patreon, down below. What that is I do gatekeep my Discord, simply because if you want to troll me, it'll cost you $1. But it keeps the community clean and engaged, and it keeps the trolls. It's basically a moat. No troll is going to cross that moat, and if they do, I get a laugh, but I also get $1. And so that's how that whole thing works.
You want to make fun of Jeff, pay him $1, and then make fun of him.
Totally. you are more than welcome to make fun of me over on the Discord. Because I made my money.
Yep.
But I might be reaching out for some beta testers late summer. I'm gonna want to know where you're going to be deploying it, and I'm gonna want feedback for it. But that's definitely something that can happen. We will be ordering some proof samples before the main run goes out. But yeah, get in touch with me. Get in touch with me. And at that point, I'm gonna want some videos from other people, so I'll send out some review samples, and I'll get to play the vendor in this point.
Yeah, in injectors and things, Christ's Galacta or whatever it says, inline injectors and things, they work, but when I'm talking about like this setup, I don't want to have a big box underneath it too for that. So
right.
You can make it work sometimes, and especially since Raspberry Pis are really popular and 5 volts, you can get a lot of things with USB on them. But still,
yeah. So like I said, we're starting out. The beta version is going to be based on a Raspberry Pi Pico. It's got its own PCB that we're mounting to it with the sensor on it and a couple other components. The final version will be a from the ground up built PCB with an RP2040 controller. Couple of reasons for that. One, stock of Raspberry Pi Picos. I don't want to have to buy 5,000 Raspberry Pi Pico Ws just to put on my boards. I also don't want to expect users to have to solder boards themselves. That's not an enterprise level product. That's not even a home lab level product. That's a hobbyist product. Oh,
you don't want to have.
That's where they're all at, you little bastard.
This is for open source.
Okay, nice.
If you're going to open source, I don't know if anybody watching this is, but I'm going to be giving these away.
Nice.
Hopefully in a fun way. If not, I will just be handing them to people.
Just be chucking them
far,
into the
project
crowd.
I'm working on is not working out very well. I'm not a mechanical engineer, but I'm trying to be.
That's amazing. What's funny is I always, when people are talking about random products or projects or whatever, I can usually reach down on my desk and go, oh yeah, this thing from like 14, yeah, I've got one of these right here. Twice now, you have reached down below you and go, oh, this reel of Raspberry Pi Picos?
Yeah, well, I'm lucky because I just came in a couple days ago. I was working with them to get it through customs and all that, but there it is.
Yep.
Yeah, the first plan I had was to do something that was a backpack mounted thing, but then I realized that getting that all to work in San Francisco is not good. So now I'm going to cut them all individually. And I realized when I made that decision that that's 480 times anything I do, which is not fun.
If you had more lead time before, I would recommend reaching out either to Joel, 3D printing nerd, or winging a prayer, Adam Savage, and see if you could do like a Raspberry Pi Pico gun launcher kind of thing.
So you're not supposed to say that. That is what is trying to happen. But okay. Yeah, I have been talking a little bit to a couple people. The problem, like you said, lead time. Like
right.
You know how it is. Like it's May.
That's a project you needed to have started 10 months ago. Right.
Yes. Yeah, I started thinking about this a month ago. Oops.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking like, oh, doing all this complex stuff. It's like, I think in the end, what might happen is I might have like a magazine for these, which getting that through TSA will be fun. But many magazines.
No, they're Picos, I swear.
With some mechanical device that I can slide them out. That's probably as far as I'm going to get before I give it up.
Yeah, even like just some kind of hopper where you could like pull a drawer and one comes out and then just kind of cycle them through. Yeah,
because the other thing is, so I was looking up just yesterday, like when you're making gun magazines, you need those springs, and there's a company that makes custom springs, and they're pretty cheap, which I was surprised by. Yeah, you just got to give them the specs, and so I have a design, but the problem is that when you order a certain number of those, the government starts getting involved, and the ATF and all that. So yeah. Like, I'm just trying to give people Raspberry Pis. I'm not trying to shoot anyone. A chain gun. Someone
Yeah.
says.
I wonder if you could modify like some kind of rubber band gun, where you cycle back like so many rubber bands and you have it on a wheel that you know, self advances.
Yep. Yes. A Pies dispenser, a Pico Pez dispenser.
Nice.
Yep.
That'd be fun, is to do a Pez dispenser where you pull a head back and it sticks out a Pico.
I could have Eben Upton's head.
Yes. I think you just did it, and the scale isn't that bad. I mean,
Yeah, no, so that was another thing I had in my list. I actually emailed Pez America. So there's a whole history between Pez International, Pez America, and the way that the Pez market came out. And they haven't gotten back to me. So I wanted permission to do it, not to sell anything or whatever.
Yeah.
They haven't emailed me back, so I'm going to use that as implicit permission to do something like that if I
Right.
need to. So.
Yeah. I have an email out right now. I've sent it like 2 or 3 times. I keep trying to push it through. Do I have one of those on my desk here? Hold on. Where's it at?
Your mic has good directionality.
It does. Yeah. We were talking about shotgun mics in our super secret Discord earlier this week. I love this because it sits about what you said. It's about hand length away, so it gets really good dynamic, range. But if I move here, it rejects 90%.
Yep. Mine, I have an Asden that's not quite as directional. If I go off axis a little bit, it probably there's something, but it's not as much as yours where you almost were muted.
Right. No, you I still get about 70% of you. If I go here, you lose 90% of me. Yeah.
Yep.
Anyway, I've emailed a couple of times Ventoy. I wanted to start selling preloaded Ventoy USB drives with my logo and Ventoy's logo on the other side. Because I have a laser engraver, and I bought some wooden USB keys. And so I actually even did up some samples and emailed them and said, can I use your logo, or how much would it be to license your logo? Because I want to sell a product. I want to, but I also want to do this the right way. And so, but it's a meme on my channel, and people would find it hilarious if I've never said the word Ventoy except on Talking Heads. Yeah. But my comments are filled with why not just use Ventoy every time I install an OS. Right, our Lord and Savior Ventoy. So I think it would just be hilarious. Oh, there they are. Hold on.
A catapult for the
my entire box of USB keys. So, printed them off. They've got my logo on one side and Ventoy's logo.
Is it just a cap?
There you go. It's a magnetic cap.
Oh, that's nice.
32 gig drive, so enough for, 5, 6, 7, installation discs on there. Just a nice little fun product. Sell them for $10 or something like that, or free if you spend $100 on the store.
When there's sales involved, that's when it's like, you really gotta tighten up that contract.
Right. Above reproach, kind of thing.
Exactly.
But I've emailed them 3 times now, I think, and they've never gotten back to me. And it's like, I want to give you like $1 for every key that I sell. I think that'd be fun.
You don't want to make this bad for them. You want to make it good for them.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's been one of the products that's been on the periphery for a while.
Then you could strap one of those to a pigeon to test out the internet speed.
I will say these are fairly inexpensive USB keys.
Yeah, they're probably not as fast as the. That was the biggest challenge is with these USB devices. So few of them are actually SSD controllers.
Right.
And some of them that advertise the speeds are not. Some of them are, but they're gimped, and some of them have so bad.
They're 1 gigabyte cache, and so or 500 megs cache, and so you'll fill that up in an instant, and then you'll drop down to the 30 megabyte transfer speeds. Yeah.
Yeah, and there was one, I forget who makes it, but there was one with a metal body, a big metal body that was like, oh, this is going to be great for thermals because they all get hot. And I took it apart, and the chip is not there's no thermal interface. So there's
Yeah.
just a chip hanging out in the air. It's like, and the thing gets hot. So you know that chip is cooking in
It's
there.
just cooking, right?
Like, come on.
Yeah. No, the problem with a lot of consumer devices like that is it does become a race to the bottom because 95% of the customer base doesn't care. They go, I need 8 gigs, or I need a terabyte, or I need this. And what's sort by lowest, order that. And so you try to make yourself look better, but you're willing to cut every corner along the way to get there.
Yep. It's like those SSDs that are micro SD cards inside.
Right? Use a USB-C M.2 enclosure. Even some of those are gimped beyond belief. They'll use a USB 2 controller to make cost.
Every one that I've bought, I put it through some benchmarks, and I usually copy 2 or 3 terabytes of data to and from to see what it like. And I found there was one, I don't remember who makes it either, but there was one that I found that is like, it's a USB 4 / Thunderbolt 4, so it actually gets up to 20 or 30 gigabits, and it will continue that as long as possible. And it has enough thermal mass that it works with some of the faster SSDs, but so many of them, it's USB 2 or it's like USB 3.0, and you can get 5 gigabits, even though it advertises 10. Like it comes with a cable that says 10 on it, and it's like, you're not actually giving me that.
Yeah.
I hate it because now that I'm in this space, if I work at home at all, what I'll do is I'll copy off a folder to that NVMe drive, and it's like gimped at 250 megabytes per second. Yeah. And I put in, I forget what the NVMe is that I stuck in it, but it can get up to 6 or 8 gigs if I put it into a PC directly. So I finally found the Thunderbolt 4 one that does, it actually gives me about 1 gigabyte per second. So now I can copy projects to and from it very quickly.
Nice, yeah.
But then you have the ports, which, every one of these Thunderbolt hubs that I have, one port says 10 or 20 or 40, and it doesn't actually give you that. Or it only gives you that if you plug it into the first port, but not the second on your computer. So it's just...
Yeah. Or you've got...
It's supposed to be the savior.
Right. Well, USB-C was supposed to be the savior. The problem is, to get those kind of speeds, you need dedicated controllers per port. It still is backwards compatible with USB, as in you can daisy chain downstream. But the problem is, you get into like data integrity and signal strength and things like that. If you get too far away from the controller, or if your traces aren't insulated, or if there's noise from your audio chip in your PC, it can cause signaling issues with the USB and slow it down or negotiate to a lower speed. I've had numerous computers with issues with USB-C. One of my webcams, it's a 4K webcam, requires a USB-C 10 gig port. I would plug it into 8 devices, and only 3 of them would be able to display at 4K, because every other device would negotiate down to 1080p.
Yeah, and I retested all my cables last month too, and I finally made my USB-C or USB 2 only for charging. And then these are ones tested to Thunderbolt 3 speed at least. And some of these, like I think one of these cables was $60 or $80 for like a 10-foot cable.
Yeah.
3 meters or whatever that is. But I also put yellow tape on the USB 2 so that I know, like, because some of them say that they're TB3 or they have the lightning bolt. It's like, no, you're not working at that speed.
Hey, Tim is in chat. Hello, Tim.
Mr. Techno.
Mr. Techno. Mr. Make everyone else's home lab look like it's set up in a garage.
Yep. He was my inspiration for doing the RGB lights on the front of the rack, which since I work in there enough, I leave the front open. But if I close it with the lights on, it actually looks really cool. But I never close it anymore after the first time I did it.
Yeah. Yep. No, I've thought a couple of times about revamping my server rack, trying to make it look better. The problem is my server rack is just in my garage. It sits 5 feet from my chest freezer and just on the other side of my laser cutters. So it's like, it's messy. It's going to look messy. I'm okay with that. If I end up moving it when I finally get to building my new studio, I do want to give it a dedicated room, make it look nice, make it a showpiece. It's just kind of a lost cause at this point. Like I keep it tidy enough. The server rack itself is tidy enough, but there's only so much you can do.
Yeah. Well, even here, after I did it, I'm like, I would have changed this. So I'm like, if I ever remodel this space, then there's some things I'm going to change, especially for filming. Like I didn't think about that at all when we were designing the space. Like everything's vertical. So if I was doing TikTok, that'd be fine. But for anything YouTube, there's no angle that works in that room. Right. And the paint color is completely wrong. It's like this slightly yellow tinge thing. Oof. So all the servers turn out this weird kind of muddy gray color.
Yeah.
But Techno Tim was asking, what do I use to test the cables? It's this.
Nice.
Yeah, it has a little CMOS or a CMOS battery on it.
Yeah.
Whatever, CR2032 or something.
2032, right.
You plug the cables in. I love it. Because you just take any cable. And well, this one works with C to C, but you can get them with different ones. It's called the C2C Caber Q. And that means it's full, all the connections, my camera's auto exposure's off.
There you go.
I'm in a mirror right
there.
now.
Right there.
Anyway, so, when you plug it in, and you can see like when it's grounded, it's just showing the ground connection.
Yeah.
But then you plug it in and they're all on.
Nice.
Very cool. C2C Caber, CABERQU. This is very handy. They make another model that's even better, but yeah, it's cool.
Nice.
We had another Jeff join too.
I saw that. Yeah, Tech Jeff. I said all Jeffs are welcome here.
Yeah, now we have like 6 nukes in chat.
That's right.
I think I just put your live stream on some list now. Sorry about that.
Yeah. Well, we do that every week. The funny thing is, I've talked to a number of creators about this because I feel like I'm kind of unique in the space anymore that I do the live stream on my main channel and I leave my VODs on the main channel. I also don't monetize this stream at all with YouTube, with AdSense. When it goes up, the live stream itself is not monetized. My VODs for the lives are not monetized. There's a couple reasons for that. One, if I don't monetize it, it actually doesn't necessarily alert my subscribers. What it'll do is it skips that channel entirely and only alerts people who are interested in the live stream. And so it's kind of the equivalent of saying, don't notify my subscribers. Also, if anyone were to, copyright claim this, good luck. Yeah. There's nothing you can do. Right. I've been copyright claimed a couple times for the live stream. I actually received a copyright strike for a live stream just a couple of months ago, and it was for a 3-year-old show. It was Bethesda that came after me for talking about the terrible, awful release of Fallout 76. Okay. And what's really funny is I didn't have any on-screen media playing during that take. We simply talked about how awful the release of Fallout 76 was. And Bethesda said, used our intellectual property and we are striking your channel. But it was done through this weird third-party thing. I ended up reaching out to Bethesda directly, to id Software, and saying, is this you? And did you submit this copyright claim in good faith? Show me where I violated it, because I'm willing to take you to court.
Did they back off?
The claim was released 6 hours later.
Yeah.
That's
talking about community relationships and how to not do it.
They did confirm that the claim was placed via an agent contracted by Bethesda Softworks to seek copyright violations. So they did claim some level of responsibility for it. But in my email, I accused them, and it was 2 other creators that I spoke to also had claims that same week from the same organization for Bethesda IP. And mine was the most egregious because, like I said, I didn't even have a picture on the screen.
Or like sound in the background or anything.
They literally did the NFL, any accounts of this game are property of the NFL. No, that's not how free speech and media works. Like, you can't forbid me from talking about your product. And that's what they did. But, copyright, DMCAs need to be done in good faith. The accuser needs to have a good faith argument that they believe IP property is being violated. There's no possible way they did that.
Yep. Yeah, someone says there's some hills worth dying on, but also, we did discuss the tunnel vision thing a bit earlier, so you can rewind this.
Yes.
You won't give Jeff any AdSense revenue, but you can rewind this and watch it later.
Right.
Yeah, it's live streams for me is I actually, when I went from like doing this as a hobby to doing this full time, I was doing live streams, and that was really what really accelerated things with my Ansible series.
Yeah.
And, for me, I don't know, my brain and live streams, whatever it is, even a podcast like this, it's a different level of my brain thinking that just it doesn't make me feel like, oh man, I'm relaxed now, I'm happy. It's more like I'm finished with this, and it feels kind of like when I go to a conference. I like it, but it also is stressful in some way.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
Like when I go to a computer conference, at the end of it, I go to my hotel room. I don't go out to the after party and the after party. I go to the hotel room and I chill. I watch something on, YouTube, or I read a book or something, because I need time off of the computer after that.
Yeah.
That's the same thing. So I only do like a live stream every 3 or 4 months now.
Yeah.
And I usually approach it as like, I was going to make a video on this, but I'll do a live stream, and it still takes a lot of prep work for me, the way I do it, because I get all my notes, I put things together, and I have everything ready, and I have a mental model of what it's going to be like, and it usually doesn't follow that, but that's that's how I approach it, which is totally different, I think, than like a healthy way to do live streams is to be more relaxed. And that's not how I am, though.
Yeah, it's totally not how I am, and I know you and I approach our main videos basically with the same mindset that everything is 100% scripted, 100% controlled. Outside of the occasional, I'm going to try this live on camera, but even if I've tried something off camera before, I already know the result to expect.
Yes.
And so yeah, it's very controlled, it's very scripted. But when it comes to live streams, I tried doing a very structured show when this first started. At one point, we even had timers where we would spend 10 minutes on a subject, and then we would force ourselves to move on. And my viewership never went up. And I went, why is that? And I went, I think it's because I'm not allowing myself to really explore any of the space that we're talking about, or any potential tangents that come up. And like Bluey, right? Like, you want to talk Bluey for 20 minutes? Let's talk Bluey for 20 minutes. Whether or not that's relevant to the subject that started it, it's still a topic in which I'm excited about, or have some story that I can tell, or anything else. And things like that are still very interesting to the audience, and it's much more casual that way. Yep. The way I started really trying to think about this show is just like a radio talk show, where it's 2 people talking down, and maybe we have an issue that we want to talk about, but that issue can lead into 30 other paths, and whatever path that takes, that's the show. And when I started doing that, it really relaxed my outlook on the show. I didn't try to control it so tightly. And now after the show, I don't have to have any of that recovery time, because all I'm doing is I'm sitting here and chatting with someone. It's not super exhaustive. Yeah.
I think back to at LTX last year, I did that charity live stream for the ITDRC, and I did a whole thing like making the Raspberry Pi timer and stuff, and it's like that adds a new level of stress that was worse. Like if I don't have the timer and stuff, then at least even with the structured live stream, it can you follow the pattern and you get there.
You and Chris putting that whole thing together, holy crap. Like my hat's off to you. And I was happy I got to step in for like 30 minutes and kind
That
of
was far
help.
too much work.
Yeah, kind of help like, okay, is there anything that I can do to jump in? Like,
Yeah.
can I hold a camera? Can I move something? Because while you guys were trying to orchestrate all of these different interviews in the background, you're also on camera emceeing the whole thing.
Yeah, that was like it worked. It was great in the end. And
Yeah.
the one bad thing was my audio settings, which were so hard because it was so loud. There was like 85 decibels. Like how do you mic somebody besides a close mic like this, you know?
Right.
So that was a one bad thing, but it worked out, and I don't think I'll ever do that again. I think if I do, I would work with at least 2 or 3 people, like have a producer type person, you know, not somebody
Yeah.
paid. Like you could sit there and just manage the people coming and going, because it's that's too much to do. But
Oh,
on the
absolutely.
flip side, the other option is just do like 1 or 2 people and sit around and talk for a little bit like this.
Mhm.
You might not get as much viewership or whatever
Mhm.
doing that versus cramming it all in and getting it all on the show floor. But the stress was like up here for that one.
Yeah, anything more than this, than the way I structure my show, I would need a producer. I would need someone to point out chats that I've missed. I would need someone to keep me on schedule, to go, hey, you meandered off a little bit, you know, let's get back to this thing, or, you know, handle any of the live logistics like scene changes or audio bugs or anything.
Yeah. Setting at OBS.
Right. Because I've kind of destructured this podcast and it ends up being just a 2-hour conversation, it's pretty easy to navigate.
And
But
yet you have such a beautiful graphic that makes it feel like we're in DS9.
right. Isn't this amazing? So this was,
Press a button.
yeah. There's tech, there's news, there's Easter eggs all throughout. But this graphic was a result of the pandemic, of needing to go full remote with the show. And my first attempt, so this is March 2020, like Oregon got the lockdown notice, I think like March 14th or something like that. And I think
You
March,
guys are like a few days before us.
yeah, a couple days before you guys. And we did the next show in person still. I think March 20th, we still did a show. And we actually did like a 4-hour, stuff's getting real, stuff's really weird right now. Let's focus on anything but the current events. So let's just chat and drink beer. And so I had John on for 2 hours, and then I had Steve on for 2 hours, and we did those shows in person with all of us just kind of hanging out in the office here. And then after that show, it's like, I don't think this is going away. I think we're going to need to change drastically. And so, like I said, we did one more in-person show after the lockdown, and then we went full lockdown. And so I started creating graphics for the show. And my first thought was, let's emulate the background. Let's do like a wood grain, you know, cigar bar kind of aesthetic to it. And it looked awful. And then I went, what's the easiest video conferencing overlay that also fits the theme of the show? Screw it, let's build an LCARS. And so one evening I just kind of sat down and I started sketching some stuff out, and and built myself a couple of these templates.
Yep.
And I've refined them certainly over the months and years, but you know, they
Very
look
well-
Fantastic.
Very well produced, I have to say.
They deliver the information that's required. They're all very stylized, and they just look great. And we've used them ever since.
Yep.
It's kind of like my so I still run an intro graphic that's 10 seconds long, and it's my cork pop and then the beer glass filling the loading screen. It's 10 seconds long. I did that on video too. I sat down in one evening and made that whole animation, and I'm like, this is just a placeholder, it'll get better, I swear. And I've used that for 412 videos now.
That probably has more watch time than many YouTube channels have in their entire history.
I could probably monetize the introduction itself.
Yep.
But yeah, no, like sometimes you just build something and it works and you go, I'm never going to improve that.
Hmm. Yeah, I never tried doing an intro thing. I don't know why I didn't, but
Hmm.
now that I don't, it's like I don't. The hard thing is like I do. It's nice to have an intro, like a hook or something,
Yeah.
and then get into it. And it's all that transition is always very hard.
Yeah.
And if you look, if you do YouTube, you see the little graph of the retention graph,
Yeah.
and you see the points where it starts going from up to like down really
And it goes,
fast, and
yeah.
it's always right in that transition zone. So I like if for me, I like to hack in like well, I shouldn't say I like to hack into things, but I like hacking the algorithm a bit,
Yeah. Yeah.
seeing what kind of tweaks you can do. Right now, it seems like YouTube's on a kick where they like really long content, which I hate
Yeah.
because I like tightening up my content and making it watchable and
Uh,
getting the watch. I like the average view duration to be whatever it is, but I like the average watch percentage to be high,
yeah.
meaning people watch the whole thing I make,
Yeah.
which makes me happy because all the time I spent making it, people spend watching. But
Yes.
YouTube isn't prioritizing that this year.
Yeah.
But you really see that transition zone. And if I had a way to get from that little intro bit to the main story
Hmm.
easier, that'd be nice. The problem is that like if I added something in, I know that people wouldn't respond well to it.
Right.
And they'd be like, oh, you added in this 3-second stinger or whatever
Yeah.
it is.
You have an established rhythm at this point, and
Yeah.
it's um when I started the channel, I don't know if this is just the control freak in me, but I always, from the very beginning, I went, "What if this thing becomes big? What if this ends up being a thing? What is the end result that I want it to look like?" And so
You're like, I want beer in it.
beer was definitely a hook. It was definitely a consideration for why would you watch?
Yeah.
And that's why all of my videos end in beer reviews. Yes, I have a 20-minute video, and it's followed by a 4-minute beer review. It's not a second channel. I don't think people would tune in just for my beer reviews, but at the same time, you might watch a tech video just to find out what beer I'm drinking. It gives dual aspects to it. And there are people who watch my channel just for the beer, which is amazing.
And you have beer lore.
Yeah,
How many tech channels have that?
right. But from the very beginning, I went, what do I want my content to look like? And when I was forming my channel, I believe your channel is freaking ancient. Like, you've got like 12-year-old videos. But
Like gray hairs,
right. Don't talk to me about that. But I went, what do I want my channel to look like? Well, I started my channel in 2017, and so you're looking around at the environment as a whole, and I was honestly focusing more consumer when I started, and so it was Linus Tech Tips and Paul's Hardware and Bitwit and Hardware Unboxed and things like that. And all of them did a snap intro, did a cold open that was 10 seconds long. And it was a one-liner that was supposed to get your attention. It was then a 5 to 10 second animation sequence, and then their ad placement immediately after. And I went, if I ever want to do ads, I need a break. I need a hook, and then I need an immediate break and a natural point to insert an ad. And so video 2, I have my video intro in there. And I started going with that formula ever since. And, I do run a lot of ads. But the other thing that I did was I don't want people to click off because I do an ad. So all my ads are funny. And it takes a lot of extra work it's so much easier to go, today's video is brought to you by blah, 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 click the link down in the video description to learn more.
When you see somebody that wrote an ad read, even if it's for something that I don't care at all about, but if you see that they went to some effort to make there's something that's more interesting about that. Even if I skip it, which I'll admit, whenever you talk about Manscaped, I skip those. But and even if parts of it are cringeworthy, it's fun cringeworthy. It's not the kind where you're, oh, that poor guy.
Yeah. Oh, I've got some gold. Making it. I've got some gold. One of my
Star Trek one I like,
Yeah, the Star Trek one's really good. That was the Linode ad for over a year as I ran that ad. I have a couple ads that only ran once and are just dynamite. One of my favorites was I did an ad for Lexar that was supposed to be a movie trailer. And it was for an NVMe drive. And if I'm being honest, not even like the best NVMe drive. It was just like here's our mid-series. So I'm like, how can I make this fun? And so I started thinking about like, your summer blockbuster action movie trailers. And so we have parodies of Matrix, Pulp Fiction, Fast and the Furious, and there's a couple others in there where it's me and Rhett just riffing on like these famous movie scenes, but all computer based. And the whole thing is you've got this big dramatic, soundtrack in the background, and then it ends and it's like, that was for an NVMe drive.
It also keeps your creative energy flowing a little bit. Like that's part of the reason I started the Level 2 Jeff was I feel like my main channel now is in this, scripted. It's not a rut, but there's a thing. Like it's a thing, and I was like, but sometimes I want to do something weird or throw a video up that I know is not going to get views, but I think it's useful to have out there for search. Like if you want to do X, Y, Z. So I wanted to start doing a little bit more playing around with that. And because if I didn't do that, my brain would be like, now I'm in a rut.
Yeah.
And I think you get to do that with the ad reads sometimes.
Totally. Yeah.
I have, so Surfshark hasn't called me back, but I put in my new, security cameras here. And now I want to have the shark running across the frame doing weird things. They haven't called me this year. So maybe I need to reach out to them.
Are you going to order the Katy Perry left shark and just like run through your studio?
That's I have it in a box over here. It's waiting and ready.
Yes.
I was that for Halloween this year.
Nice.
I scared a few people, including my youngest daughter.
That's amazing.
So I don't know. Hopefully we can get that done because it's fun. It's fun for it's dumb, but it's fun.
Yeah.
It's dumb fun, and it shows that you cared more about the sponsorship too than just saying
right,
get this VPN. It's neat, and here's the talking points. I think
right.
That's silly. And I like for me, I think for you and me both, we wouldn't take a sponsorship from somebody we knew was a scam, but I know a lot of people who do, which is it's grating. It's like, oh, I just lost like 3 respect points because all these things. Like I'm doing Squarespace right now, and I've done
Squarespace. Yeah.
It's like I actually was going to start using them, and then they contacted me for my new merch store, which this shirt is on. If you want to go to Red Shirt Jeff, don't go right now because it's the old one. But in a month or so, go there and buy this because it's really nice, high quality shirt. But I'm working with them, and I wouldn't recommend them to everyone building a website.
Right.
But they're not a scam. Like they do marketing, so you see them a lot. But they're
there were a couple big names that over the years have reached out to us. What was that? Established titles, become a lord in Scotland, and all that kind of crap. And they offered me, like, without even hearing what my rate was, they offered me 4 times my normal rate, and I went, no.
Yeah. There every once in a while there's something like that. Raid Shadow Legends for a while was like that, but there's a few of those games where it's like, this game is just not. There's no redeeming quality to your game.
There's a couple schools of thought that I usually go on. One, I will not work for you or promote your business if I think you're a crappy business. And some of that goes into mobile gaming. Look, they're mobile games, pay to win. Absolutely takes advantage of the whales in the market, and they're looking for people to spend $1,000 on a mobile game for no redeeming qualities whatsoever. I understand that. At the same time, I don't think there's any harm to doing a Raid Shadow Legends ad. And so, and I do have friends who play Raid Shadow Legends. They don't spend any money. My wife plays a couple of slot casino games that are, ad supported and, buy 1,000 tokens today. And she plays the tokens that she gets given every day and then she logs off. And I think the majority of people are like that. And so it's like, would I promote it? Sure. I stop short of saying, I wake up every morning and play Raid Shadow Legends. My hero is this. No, bullshit. I don't do that. I'm never going to lie. I'm very specific in the language that I use. One of the examples that I use is I did an ad for Athletic Greens for AG1. And they say in the recommended reading points, say that your day starts off with it. And I said, no. You can start your day off with this and whatnot. And so I did all my B-roll and stuff like that. I never once said, I do this. Yep. I wake up every morning and I make this kale shake and whatever. No, because you'll never get me to say that because that's lying to my audience. I don't think necessarily your product is for me, but at the same time, I don't have a problem with you selling your product on my page. And so there... Yeah.
With Raid, I for many times I was like, what can I do that would be a great pun? Like a video with Raid. I could do with Raid.
Raid recently reached out to me and they asked for a video. And I said, I've actually been thinking about this because I don't know that my audience would be overly receptive to a Raid ad unless I made it funny, unless I had a tie-in. If you're willing to buy me the hardware that I need for a project that is over and above my normal budget, say, $3,000, $4,000, I'll run a Raid Shadow Legends ad. And one of my main sayings on the channel is Raid is not a backup. You buy me enough hard drives where Raid can be a backup and I'll run a Raid Shadow Legends ad. They agreed to it.
So when is this coming?
I need to get back to them. The project changed a little bit on my end of things, and so I need to get back to them and say exactly, or just do some back and forth still. But they agreed to buy me some RAM and some hard drives, and so maybe there will be a Raid Shadow Legends ad where Raid is not a backup, and here's proof why. But today's video is brought to you by Raid Shadow Legends.
Yep.
I think that's a totally fine tie-in. I'm not going to say I wake up every morning and play the latest hero, and I'm excited for the latest content pack or whatever, because I'm not. But I don't think there's any problem in advertising the game.
Yep. Yeah. And then there's the ones, I don't know. Some just make me uncomfortable, like BetterHelp. Like, it doesn't seem like they're an outright scam, but I've heard enough weird things that I'm like, eh.
They reached out to me lately. I think Monday I got an email from them. And there's enough weird things, like you're right. Like I don't feel comfortable with that one.
Yeah, a few of the VPNs are the same way. I mean, for me, it's like I put my stake in the ground with Surfshark last year for some stuff. Mm-hmm. Don't tell them I said this, but it's like they're not the only.
No one watches the show.
But it's like there are a few VPNs that it's like you seem okay, but I just. Something rubs me the wrong way, or when you look at the list of like who owns the VPNs and the master group, those ones I just I'm not gonna touch those.
Right. Like I said, if a VPN, especially something within our industry, wants to advertise, what are your security specifications? Who has audited you? Why should I recommend your product, your service to my very knowledgeable user base?
Whereas Tech Potato says. What is your minimum specification?
Right. So yeah, there are some companies I have no problem working for. There are other companies that, go pound sand. And then there's a middle ground where, are they the right choice for me? Am I, clamoring at the bit to spend my money on them? Maybe not, but I don't necessarily think they're a bad product either. And so I'm never going to sell you something I don't actually believe is functional. Like...
That's what IPOs and Kickstarters are for.
Right.
That's been a fun thing too. Is like I get so many emails about products that I see the potential, and they're going to do a Kickstarter, and it's like, I've done like 3. I haven't done sponsorships, but I've worked with companies that like usually it's an individual or a small company. It's going to put something on Kickstarter.
Yep.
And I mean, I know this from the many Kickstarters I backed. If it happens, it'll be 2 to 4 years, not 3 months, 6 months, or whatever.
This isn't a pre-order. You are literally sending your money to help fund a company rather than being a... Yeah.
You're funding a startup. You're not buying this product, and hopefully it comes through. But 80% of the time it doesn't. And but But I only have done that for people I've personally interacted with before the Kickstarter happened. And even then, it becomes such a ball of wax that it's hard to like that was one reason I didn't want to do the Ugreen NAS. I don't know if you did a video on it.
They reached out. I never ended up responding.
They were emailing everyone. Like
they emailed everyone in our group. Yeah.
And it's like if you weren't doing the Kickstarter, I would have thought more about it. But I just don't touch Kickstarter stuff, even if it's from a company, because if it is from a company that's established, then you get a lot of backlash, rightfully, because it's like, why are you launching a Kickstarter?
Right. Just build the product if you think it's a good
because
product.
They want that extra little bit of juice from Kickstarter featuring their product, and them telling their superiors like, oh, we put up the Kickstarter and it made 8,000%. It's like, yeah, because you're a huge company and you just
because you asked for $1,000. Of course, it got funded day one. Don't sell me that bullshit. So again, I work a lot in the consumer and the gaming space as well as the home lab stuff. And so I do reviews of, gaming handhelds and things like that. And gaming handhelds are one of those ones where basically every single one of them launches on Kickstarter or Indiegogo, regardless of if you're an established company like GPD or Ioneo or not. Every single handheld launches on there. They use it as a pre-order system, which I guess in some ways is fine, but at the same way, why are you giving Kickstarter 9% of your revenue? Just launch it on your webpage. You're big enough at this point to not have that overhead. But every one of my videos where I review a handheld, where I say they're launching on Kickstarter, I have to include a 2-minute disclaimer of you're backing a product that doesn't exist yet, and specs are not final, and things may change, and you might get screwed over, and everything. And I hate doing Kickstarter reviews, but this is an intriguing product, and blah, blah, blah. I hate it.
Yeah. That's like I've tried to figure out like what is the way that you can compact and densify that information, but also not enough that people can't because you really don't want somebody who is naive and hasn't done a Kickstarter thing to buy it and think that they're going to get it because they're not buying it, they're backing it. So it's tough, because when you spend a minute, you can see if you go in your watch time, I'm hacking the algorithm, you can see little dips as you're explaining something as people are skipping through to the point that's actually relevant. So it's another reason why I avoid that sometimes, is just because I know that I'm not going to spend as much time working on the thing or talking about the thing that I want to. And I don't know.
I'm Commander Shepard, and this is my favorite Kickstarter on the Citadel. Raid Shadow Legends is not a backup. Novella Hub says, hopefully no Seagate 3 terabyte drives in a raid. No, I tried that. I learned my lesson.
You know what would be funny if somebody went on to all the lists of Backblaze's like the worst hard drives and built an array with like one of each of the worst ones.
It's basically what I did. Okay. So don't buy any 3 terabyte drive ever. So the generation that they were building 3 terabyte drives was during the Fukushima earthquake. And so all of the fabs, all of the hard drive fabs were within a region that could have been affected not only by the earthquake, but by the subsequent radiation. And that was the top product at the time. So even like the reputable companies, even like the Western Digital, the Hitachis, the HDST, all of their 3 terabyte hard drives suck. None of them suck as hard as Seagate though. So Seagate has the ES2 3 terabyte hard drives, and they are infamously like 60% fail rate year over year. Like they are awful. And a couple batches showed up on eBay one year, and I went, you know what? For a home lab secondary NAS that I can play with different configurations, if I can buy like 14, 16 drives, have them on hand, put 12 of them in a NAS and have 4 on the shelf. If they fail, no big deal. I'll swap them out. I've got hot spares or cold spares or whatever else. I bought 16 of these drives. So I spent $300 and some odd on Seagate 3 terabyte drives. Freaking like 8 of them failed within a year.
Sounds like Mark in chat was in the same boat there.
Yeah. So yeah, no, I've gone down that road and tried to do that. It wasn't like that exact concept, but it was, I knew the drives were bad, but at the same time, it's like, I'm not using them for a primary purpose. Maybe there's still some value. No, there's no value in them.
Yep. I think it's funny because I didn't really get into storage. I did stuff with single hard drives until probably 3 or 4 years ago. And that was around the 4 to 6 terabyte era.
Yeah.
So and all the hard drives I've ever chosen have been in the top few percentage on the Backblaze stats, which is just luck.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is great. So, but the big problem I have now is like it's a definitely like a above first world problem because 45 Drive sent me those hard drives for the Storinator
For the AB60,
Petabyte
right?
Pi project. I still have a box and a half of 20 terabyte hard drives that I actually gave a few to different people to try to help them out in storage, but I still also need some for the weird projects I'm planning on doing. One of them is Pi 5 powered petabyte, but I don't know. It's like now I'm just like, well, if 3 of them fail, I have another box over there.
Yeah, no, I've got most of my NAS array, specifically my backup, is built on HGST 6 and 8 terabyte drives. They started becoming affordable like right around $100. What was that? Like 2019, 2020.
Yeah.
And that's when I bought the bulk of my storage. I need to talk to 45 Drives because they only gave me 7 20 terabyte hard drives.
Well, you need to have a petabyte project that you can come up with.
Right. I need
go
to
big or go home. You're
right,
probably
exactly.
like, oh, I could do a Q30 or the AV15 or something. It's like,
I did an AV15 and they half filled it. It's like, what is this mess? And like a month later, you come out with your video. I'm like, of course.
The problem is that it is far too much hardware for a human to comprehend. Like,
And my problem is I have 150 terabytes as a primary deployment, and then I've got another 120 terabytes of backup space. So all of my primary is in RAID Z2 on like 3 different arrays, and then I've got 2 large Z2s on backup as well. So I have so much redundancy and so much backup, and it's not quite 3-2-1, but it's darn close.
And like, I'm guessing you're not even using 50% of that space.
I'm using about 60% is where my utilization's at. So I'm about to the point where I need to consider looking at like, what's the next step?
Yep.
Like my entire craft computing archive going back to 2018. I have original video files for everything mid 2018 and up.
Mm-hmm.
Now I've deleted most of the A roll, but I have all of my B roll, and I have all of my A roll even for the last 100 videos, and that's about 50 terabytes, and then I've got another 10 or 15 terabytes of various assets and things like that I've kept. So like 65 of my 150 is for craft computing, and then I've got another 30 or 40 terabytes for other stuff. So
Linux
ISOs, as it were. So I'm right at that point where I'm starting to like consider what is the next step. Mm-hmm. What would a migration look like? What hardware do I want? But I'm still 18 months away from like needing to pull the trigger. And as we all know in the hardware space, that's a long time between, planning and then allocation. And so what do I want it to look like? And what do I prep 45 drives to send me? I don't know yet.
Yeah, you got to talk to Kioxia too. Get them to send you some flash storage like they sent to LCT.
Yep.
I've been talking to them for a year and a half now about different projects I'm working on, and they finally, I think, trust me enough that they sent me a couple of their enterprise drives to test in the HL15.
I talked to them, and my first ask for them was 100 terabytes of flash, and it's simply because I do a lot of VDI. I do a lot of virtualization where it's not necessary.
You would probably actually put it to good use. I wanted a little bit, like I only wanted like, I think 2 or 4 terabytes, but redundant. So, 4 or 8 terabytes. and they ended up sending me two 15 terabyte drives, which I'm like,
Yeah.
that's okay.
Yeah, I asked for 8 of their 15 terabyte drives, and they said, "How long do you need them for?" And I went, "I'm not even getting it through my testing inside of 6 weeks. Like this has been like a multi-year project." I was going like, every video that I do, you're gonna get mentioned, you're gonna get some time and everything else, and you know, I have certain criteria that I'm trying to meet, and certain, you know, specific industries that I'm trying to hit with this. And they went, "Well, how long do you need them for? Like, what would 4 weeks do it?" And I went, 4 weeks, I could get it installed.
Yeah. Yeah. And Mark says, "Can someone please send me 100 terabytes of flash?"
Right.
It's interesting because like sometimes there's like a project, like for instance, the Petabyte Pi project. I even talked to 45 Drives about like, okay, how can we, like, I'll get the stuff and I'll send it out to somebody, or is there anybody in the Midwest I could, you know, meet them up and hand them the stuff? It doesn't happen. Like it's really hard to get equipment out and then get it back to the vendor a lot of times.
Yeah.
Or like a couple of them have said, "Oh, you can ship it back to us," and it's like, that's, you know, $400 shipping or something. Like it's a weird thing to have. You have the ability to acquire hardware that you wouldn't normally otherwise. On the flip side, some of that hardware, you don't have a use for it, except for you wanted to do this project to see what could happen.
Yeah.
And I don't know, that's I'm still trying to solve that, because you can't just give it away too, because that has its own issues.
Right.
So I have one rolling cart with all those old projects just sitting there. Like, I don't know what to do. You know?
Do you know how many gaming handhelds and mini PCs I have within arm's reach right now? I don't even have to leave my chair, and I've got $8,000 worth of stuff I can just reach out and touch. Yeah. And none of it has any value to me because I don't use it. And the thing is, it's not because it's worthless. It has value to the channel as a product to demonstrate to the audience, or specific use cases or things like that. But I'm only one person. I only game on one handheld. Yeah. I can only put so many mini PCs of mismatched configurations into deployment somewhere. You know, if I wanted to, but here's the flip side, like, you know, the people who go, "You get all your hardware for free, wouldn't it be great?" Do you realize 90% of my content is eBay stuff? eBay doesn't send me crap, okay?
You got to get into eBay Motors. It seems like for the auto channels, they sponsor everything.
Oh, absolutely.
We need an eBay Tech.
Yeah.
eBay Home Lab.
Quite honestly, I've thought about pitching them. So maybe one of these days I'll do that. I have managed to negotiate a couple of times with some decommissioning eBay sellers, and so the people who go out and buy data centers, and then they'll buy the Wisconsin, they'll buy the Cheyenne data center, and then sell it off for parts. Like I've talked to them a couple of times, and I've done some really good numbers. Like I'll demonstrate some hardware on the channel. Send me a couple of servers, and I'll show them off. Show me something you have in bulk. I'll give a use case for it, and I'll give an affiliate link. I make my money from that. It doesn't cost you anything because it's literally the cost of shipping for you. And you sell your inventory. And I've done that a couple of times to some really good effect. The last time I reached out to a company I've worked with multiple times, though, they had multiple hundreds of an item in stock. And it was an item for $250. Like, it wasn't like a real high ticket item or anything like that. But I went, "If you want this stock gone in 3 weeks, send me one. I'll do a video. It'll fly." That's the kind of thing you're sitting on right now. And they went, "It's just not worth it to us."
Yeah.
And I went, "If no one advertises it, you're going to be sitting on this for like 9 months. And I know warehouse space is money." And okay. Yep. But at that point, do you buy the product and demo it anyway, where they're free and clear? Or do you stick by your convictions and go... And look, I'm not one to play the influencer card. I'm not like driving to hotels going, "Do you know who I am? I'll give you a good review on Yelp." Like, no, I hate people like that. But at the same time, it's like, producing a video costs money. And I have a genuine like win-win proposition with a proven track record with a company that I've worked with before. And they go, "It's just not worth it to, you know, pay $80 shipping to send you a server." And it's like, I guess that one's a miss for me.
Yeah. Yeah, there was one it's funny. Like I got so many comments like, "Oh, why are you doing this paid thing?" It's like, well, they didn't pay me. I had this idea to do a video on the Mars 400 server for like a year and a half, and I kept emailing this company or Embedded or whatever.
Hmm.
Like totally, there might be like 3 people that watch my channel that might ever think about buying a server from them. But I kept asking them like, "Hey, this is cool, and it's kind of like this other thing, and it's a Pi clusters. You built like one of these things, but commercially." And I finally did it after they basically they didn't discontinue it, but it's like, this
Hmm.
is our really old server. And they sent me one and I did the video and I thought it was fun and interesting,
Yeah. Yeah.
but it's like that kind of thing. I don't know, like how do you pitch that and how do you get that done and also make people not feel like you're shilling it? It's like, I thought this was a cool, interesting thing, a production
Right.
version of a Pi cluster that does storage.
Right.
And yeah, Geerling looks tired. Well, that's because my 2 drinks have run out.
Yeah, yeah. He's had his cider, he's had his caffeine, and
Yeah,
it's 10:15 where he's at. Like
yeah.
it's getting late. He's got 4.5 kids. That being said, it is probably about time to start wrapping things up. So anything good of the order, Jeff? Like we didn't quite get to the Bluey talk you were hoping for, but
Yeah.
is there anything we didn't talk about that you were kind of hoping to
Well,
get to?
I don't want to talk about the 5090 because I still have 3 or 4 projects on my 4090 that I finally bought after months and months of, the shortages and all that. I got it, and then I got it in my computer. And
Uh-huh.
since I moved, I never reset that computer because the biggest computer I have, it's the giant, like 26-inch tall, massive
Yeah,
full
yeah.
tower
The Gateway
workstation.
2000 box. Yeah. Yeah.
So I set it over in the corner and it's still sitting over there. I actually ordered an underdesk mount for it this
Uh-huh.
week. So I'm gonna get it in, and then it's like, but now it's gonna be a 5090, and then the things that I do with it, like on a Raspberry Pi, are not gonna be as impactful because the old card.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't need to cover that. Nobody
Yeah.
needs to. We just need to not make that happen until 2025.
There you go. Yeah. So yeah, you'll get the underdesk mount. You can just set that in the same corner of the computer, and you can wait until January.
Yeah.
Sweet. Problem solved.
Yep.
Then it ends up like the literally as tall as I've got like a 4.5 foot tall tower of boxes over here of stuff waiting to open, of
Yep.
projects that I've told companies I would get to that I have not had time to get to.
Yep.
And that's just in the office. That's not including the stuff that's out next to the server rack. So
Yep. I also have a problem. I'll open something and then like this is a little fan board for something
mhm.
for a project that I've been working on, and it's on my desk now. It'll be here for like 6 months. It'll keep getting pushed back into the corner, and then I'll finally remember. Oh, hey, I should do that project at some point.
I was trying to think of what I bought all these screws for. They're for something. They go to something.
To mount a thing and a thing.
Yep. Yeah. I've also got a baggie of screws for mounting my little Pico project. I've got. It never ends.
Yep.
Anyway, I'm Jeff. He's Jeff. Links for both of us down in the video description. If you don't follow us, make sure to subscribe. You can find us here. You can find us on social media. Link to Geerling's channels down in the video description. Go give him a follow if you don't already. But as always, this has been Talking Heads, episode 333. Join us every Wednesday night at 6 p.m. Pacific time for the latest in beer and tech news right here on YouTube. Other than that, thank you all so much for watching. Jeff, thank you again for joining on late notice. It was such a great show. Great to
Thanks
have
for
you.
having me.
Yeah. And as always, we'll see you next week. Cheers, everyone.
See ya.
And we're out.
Yay. Good work. Yeah.